All right, welcome back everybody to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something you guys sent our way, and it's been making waves in the workplace. It's this thing, this trend called the Great Detachment. We've got all your articles right here, ready to unpack it. It's like, picture this team of all these bright minds working towards this shared goal, but then like half of them are, I don't know, just kind of phoning it in, mentally checked out, not great for success, right? And to help us sort through all of this, we've got with us our expert on workplace trends. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
One of the things I found really interesting in the articles was there was this Gallup study that said something like 79% of employees are feeling this detachment from their work. 79%, that's huge. What makes this different from quiet quitting we've been hearing about?
That's a good question. And I think, honestly, it's a little misleading to even call it quiet. What we're seeing with this great detachment thing, is this deeper level of disengagement, and it's really impacting younger generations in particular. They're not just passively coasting, they're like actively withdrawing mentally and emotionally. And you can imagine that has some pretty serious implications for how productive they are, for innovation.
Right, so it's not just about doing the bare minimum.
Right.
It's more this lack of investment in the work itself.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the articles I was reading pointed to this My Perfect Resume survey, and they highlighted some pretty common reasons for this whole thing. Low pay, values not aligning, and then just a lack of expectations for the future. Those all seem pretty straightforward, but what impact are they having, like, on an emotional level?
Well, just think about it. If you're constantly feeling undervalued, if your personal values don't line up with what the company's actually doing, if you feel like you're just drifting with no sense of purpose, no direction, it's going to affect you. It can lead to resentment, apathy, eventually that feeling of why even bother?
It's like you're on a hamster wheel, putting in effort, but no idea where you're going.
Exactly. And that's like the perfect recipe for burnout and detachment. Now, we can't just ignore the elephant in the room, this huge shift to remote and hybrid work. While it offers some flexibility, it's also kind of blurred the lines between work life and, well, life. It makes it harder to really disconnect and recharge.
Yeah, that always-on feeling.
Yeah.
It can be exhausting. One of the Gallup studies mentioned, that communication, coordination, it can really suffer in those setups, and it leads to this feeling of isolation. So are we saying hybrid work is bad?
Not necessarily, but it requires, I think, a really conscious effort from both the employer and the employee to make it actually work well. Clear communication, setting boundaries, fostering a sense of community. These are all essential to avoid, the downsides like isolation, detachment. It's about creating a hybrid model that supports both how productive you are and your well-being.
Right, so it's not one size fits all. It needs to be tailored
Right.
to the specific needs of the team, the individuals.
Exactly. What's interesting, though, is that while hybrid work is a factor, it's not the only cause. This great detachment thing, it's been simmering for a while. It's been fueled by these wider societal shifts. I mean, think about the past few years. A global pandemic, all the political stuff going on, economic uncertainty. It's been a lot. And that unease, that anxiety, it's seeping into the workplace.
It's like this undercurrent of anxiety is impacting everything.
Okay.
And it's making people question their priorities, like what's important, their place in the world.
Exactly. And that's where I think this gets really interesting, this conversation, because it's not just about, putting on a Band-Aid. It's about reimagining this whole relationship we have with work and with meaning. It's about acknowledging the whole person, not just the employee.
So not just perks,
Yeah.
ping pong tables, whatever.
Yeah.
It's about a deeper sense of purpose and connection.
Exactly.
But what does that look like, practically speaking? How do we address this great detachment thing?
Well, the articles you brought up, they highlight this crucial first step, which is open and honest communication.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about your yearly survey or performance review. It's about fostering a culture where employees feel comfortable sharing what's on their mind, concerns, ideas, aspirations, all of it.
So like regular check-ins, open door policies, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But it goes deeper than just, having a suggestion box, right? It's
Yeah.
about actively listening and then actually taking the feedback seriously. It's about using that feedback to actually shape company policy, procedures, even the overall direction.
It's about making people feel like they have a voice, like they're part of the solution, not just the problem.
Precisely. And that's where purpose comes in. Beyond just clear communication, employees need to feel like what they're doing has meaning, like it's contributing to something bigger.
Okay. One of the articles mentioned that Gallup found that less than half of employees even know what's expected of them at work,
Wow.
let alone how their work, contributes to the bigger picture.
Right.
Only 30% felt valued by their company. Those numbers are pretty alarming.
Yeah, they are. And I think it points to a fundamental disconnect, right? Companies often focus so much on the what, the tasks, the deliverables, the metrics, but they forget about the why. Why are we doing this? What impact does this have on our customers, our community, the world?
Like, it's about connecting the dots between day-to-day work and the bigger mission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where leadership plays such a crucial role. Leaders need to be able to articulate the company's values, its vision for the future, and how each individual's work fits into that shared goal.
Like painting a picture of where we're going and how we're going to get there.
Exactly. Together.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, saying the right words. It's about actions, right? It's about creating a culture where employees feel valued, heard, and empowered to contribute their talents, their ideas. Remember that statistic about only 30% feeling valued? That's a huge red flag.
Yeah, it is. So what can leaders do to turn that around?
Yeah.
What are some things, some tangible things they can do to foster that sense of value and purpose?
One powerful approach is to just focus on employee development, provide those opportunities for growth, both professionally and personally. Offer training, mentorship, even the chance to explore different roles within the company.
It's showing you're invested in their future, not just right now, not just their output today.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just formal programs. It's about creating this culture of learning, where feedback is ongoing, where mistakes are seen as opportunities to learn, and where new ideas are encouraged and celebrated.
A sense of curiosity and continuous improvement.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of recognition and reward. Celebrate successes, both big and small. Acknowledge individual contributions. Highlight how they've made a difference.
It's about making people feel seen
Mm-hmm.
and appreciated for what they do.
Precisely. And remember, purpose isn't always about, these grand gestures or saving the world. It can be found in the everyday moments, in small acts of service, in the collaborative efforts that make a team successful.
It's finding that meaning in the work itself, the connections we make, and the positive impact, that we have on others.
Exactly. And that's what makes this conversation so crucial, because addressing this great detachment, it isn't just about, getting people to work more or making sure they don't quit. It's about creating an environment where people can actually thrive, both personally and professionally.
Yeah. It's recognizing work is a big part of our lives.
Huge.
It should be a source of fulfillment, not just a means to an end.
Absolutely. And that's why, this whole trend, it might actually be a good thing in a way. It's a wake-up call for organizations to rethink how they approach work, to create a more human-centered environment.
It's an opportunity to build something better, something more sustainable for individuals and the organizations they work for.
Precisely. And that brings us to a pretty crucial question. What can our listener do, whether they're an employee or a leader, to foster this sense of connection and meaning in their own workplace?
All right, well, we're going to get into that right after the break. Stay with us. So, we've talked about the problem, we've explored some potential solutions, but let's get down to brass tacks. What can our listener who brought us these articles, what can they actually do about this great detachment, like starting right now?
Well, I think it really depends on, where they are in this whole thing. For someone who's actually feeling that detachment, the first step is to look inward, What's at the root of it for you? Is it the work itself? Is it the company culture, lack of growth opportunities? Or is it something else completely?
Yeah. It's like that saying, knowing is half the battle or something. But then what? So you figured out why you're detached. What do you do about it?
That's where things get interesting. So let's say, for example, it's a lack of challenge, right? You feel like you're capable of more, but you're stuck. Don't just sit there and be frustrated. Talk to your manager. Lay out your aspirations. The worst thing that can happen is they say no. And even then, at least you've, opened that door.
It's like taking control of your own career. Not just being a passenger. But what if it's something bigger? Like, I don't know, you fundamentally disagree with the company's values.
That's tougher, yeah, definitely. If you've tried to voice your concerns and nothing changes, it might be time to ask yourself, is this really the right place for me in the long run? Sometimes the best thing you can do is know when to walk away.
That takes guts, to walk away. What about the people on the leadership side? How do they tackle this from their end?
This is where things get really fascinating, I think. Leaders need to kind of shift their mindset. It's not just about managing tasks and hitting those targets anymore. It's about creating a space where people feel genuinely valued, where they feel heard, and where they feel like what they do matters.
So more than a boss, like a coach,
Hmm.
someone who's invested in their team's growth and well-being.
Exactly. Exactly. Those regular check-ins, they shouldn't just be about updates on projects. They should also be about how are you doing? What are your challenges? What are you excited about? And then the leader needs to be ready to act on that feedback, not just listen and then file it away.
It's about actually showing that you care, not just going through the motions.
Uh-huh.
One of the articles mentioned celebrating even small wins. Does that really make a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's about recognizing people's efforts, making them feel seen. It doesn't have to be this big thing. Sometimes even just a simple thank you can go a long way in making people feel good, making them feel like they belong.
Right. It's about creating that culture of appreciation where people feel like what they do is valued.
Right.
But let's be real, there are always going to be people who just, aren't that into their jobs.
Yeah, that's true. But even then, I think leaders can still make a difference. Communicating expectations clearly, providing those opportunities for growth, connecting those individual roles to the bigger picture, these things can help to spark some level of engagement, even if it's not, full-blown passion.
Right. It's not about magically making everyone love their jobs, but creating an environment where they can at least feel respected and see the value in what they do.
Exactly. And it takes work. It's not just a one-time thing. It's about building a culture of trust, transparency, and genuine care. And that, I think, is really the key takeaway here.
It's a big shift for sure, but as we've been talking about, the payoff can be huge for the individuals and for the companies.
It's about creating workplaces where people feel energized, motivated, and connected to something bigger than themselves. And in a world facing, well, a lot of challenges, that's a mission worth pursuing.
Well, listener, it's been a really interesting deep dive into this great detachment thing. We've explored its causes, what it means, and most importantly, what you can do about it.
Whether you're an employee looking for more meaning in your work or you're a leader trying to build a more engaged team, we hope this conversation has given you some ideas, some place to start.
Remember, it's about taking action, whether it's big or small. Have that conversation. Seek out that opportunity. Make that change. Because creating a more fulfilling and meaningful work experience, that's something we can all work towards together.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep trying to make your work and the world a little bit better.
See you on the next deep dive. Okay, so we've talked about the problem, we've looked at some potential solutions, but let's get practical. What can our listener, the one who sent us all these articles, what can they actually do about this whole great detachment thing, like starting today?
Well, it all comes down to, where they fit in. If they're the one feeling detached, I'd say the first thing is a little introspection. What's at the heart of it, for
Yeah.
them? Is it the work itself? The company culture?
Hmm.
No room to grow? Or something else entirely?
Right, right. Figure out the why. But then, what then? You figured out why you're detached, what do you actually do?
Okay, well, now things get interesting. Let's say it's the work itself. Not enough challenge. You can do more, but you're stuck. Don't just, stew about it. Talk to your manager. Be upfront about what you want. Worst case, they say no, but at least you started the conversation.
Yeah, take control, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just go along for the ride. But what if it's, I don't know, like a bigger issue, like you just don't agree with the company's values at all?
Yeah, that's trickier, for sure. If you've spoken up and nothing changes, well, you got to ask yourself if it's the right place for you long term. Sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when to move on.
Takes guts to do that.
Yeah.
But what about for people in leadership roles? What can they do?
That's where things get really interesting. I think leaders need a mindset shift. It's not just about, managing tasks and hitting goals. It's about building an environment where people actually feel valued, where they feel heard, and where they feel like their work makes a difference.
So less of a boss, more of a coach,
Right.
someone invested in their team's growth and their well-being.
Exactly. Exactly. Those check-ins, they shouldn't just be about, how's the project going? They should also be about how are you doing? What are you struggling with? What are you excited about? And the leader has to be ready to actually do something with that feedback, not just hear it and forget it.
It's got to be real, not just going through the motions, right?
Yeah.
One of the articles talked about celebrating small wins. Does that actually matter?
Oh, absolutely. It's about recognizing effort,
Hmm.
making people feel seen. Doesn't have to be a big production. Sometimes just a thank you can go a long way. It makes people feel appreciated, like they're part of something.
Yeah, that culture of appreciation, where people feel like their work is valued. But let's face it, some people are just never going to love their jobs.
True, but even then, there's stuff leaders can do. Being clear about what's expected, giving people chances to grow, showing how their work connects to the big picture, all of that can help create at least some engagement, even if it's not, all out passion.
Yeah, not about forcing everyone to love it, but at least creating an environment where they feel respected, where they see that what they do has value.
Exactly. And it takes effort. It's not a one-time fix. It's about building trust, being open, showing that you genuinely care.
Yeah.
That's really the heart of it, I think.
It's a big shift, yeah. But as we've seen, the payoff can be huge for everyone, for individuals, for companies, for everyone.
It's about building workplaces where people feel energized, motivated, like they're part of something bigger. And in a world with so many challenges, well, that's a mission worth fighting for.
Well, listeners, it's been a fascinating deep dive into this whole great detachment thing. We've talked about what causes it, what it means, and most importantly, what you can do.
Whether you're an employee wanting more from your work or you're a leader wanting to build a more engaged team, hopefully this has sparked some ideas, given you a place to start.
Remember, take action, big or small. It all counts. Talk to someone, look for an opportunity, make a change. Because creating a more fulfilling, more meaningful work experience, that's something we can all aim for together.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep trying to make your work and the world a little bit better.
See you on the next deep dive.